Hey guys, doing my best to keep up with the latest game news, boy here, and welcome back to another video. Yesterday saw the announcement trailer for Codemasters' latest iteration of the F1 series, F1 2019, and whilst everybody else seems to be having a breakdown at the inclusion of a Formula 2 car within the trailer, I thought this would be a good idea and a good time for me to perhaps talk about things that I'd like to see added or improved to F1 2019 for its release later on this year. Everything that I'm going to suggest in this video comes from my experience in F1 2018. I have nearly 110 hours in the Steam version of F1 2018. I've streamed it a lot, done a lot of full distance races, and I think that experience, helps me understand how the game works and the things it does need to do better if it wants to keep improving as a franchise. Now, usually with these videos, I write out a script because I help it finds me get to points a bit quicker, but it also limits me to certain ways of talking, certain ways of thinking, I find. So this is going to be just an ad-lib video. I'm going to sit here, have a discussion with myself like every other sane person does, right? And hopefully at the end have something that I can edit together. We'll see, I guess. So the first thing that I would love to see as a feature or as an addition in F1 2019, and this is a bit of a meme for Codemasters at the moment, is virtual reality, VR support. Now, I know this game is primarily aimed at a console market, so VR isn't as big of a deal over there, but for me as a sim racer and someone who is a massive VR enthusiast, having any modern day racing game that treats itself as somewhat of a simulation without VR, it's kind of odd. You find yourself wanting it and craving it almost when you're driving against the AI. One of the big problems I have when running a single monitor setup in F1 2018 is that if I want to move the camera to give me a somewhat realistic looking FOV, I immediately lose the wing mirrors. I have no mirrors behind me, and of course, as you know, as I mentioned a long time ago in things I wanted to see added to F1 2018, which never of course happened, there's no virtual mirror in the F1 games, so you are left with the proximity arrows instead, which aren't always reliable. It doesn't really give you a chance to defend from someone early on. So VR would solve that because you could just glance to each mirror every now and then. I also appreciate that the VR audience is still in the minority, let's be honest with that. But the outcry for VR in Dirt Rally 2.0 and the sea of comments saying no VR, no buy, surely has to tell you something. That audience is there, and that audience very much wants to be able to use their VR headsets with your game. So whether that'll be a priority for Codemasters, I very much doubt it will, but I think it's something they should really seriously be investigating if they aren't already doing so. Next, I would like to see an improvement with the AI, and I say this as someone who pretty much exclusively just plays the career mode. I don't do anything online or anything like that, so my focus is always going to be on single player gameplay. I'm going to start off by saying that getting the AI right in terms of aggression and skill is difficult in any game and not a task that I would like to have myself. But in a game with such an emphasis on the career mode and also being in a car which is incredibly fragile, having AI that are somewhat predictable and have a, I guess, realistic amount of aggression is kind of important. Now, don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed the fact that you had to always keep an eye on the inside. If there's a car there on your inside and even has a sniff of an attempt at passing, they'll just go for it, as they would in real life F1. Passing an F1 is difficult, so when there's a chance, you take it. But in that same vein, sometimes the AI kind of just ignore your existence on track, and because, of course, we're driving F1 cars and these things are fragile, the front wings are, if you even look at them the wrong way, they'll fall apart. If you have an aggressive AI, chuck it up the inside, you give them all the room in the world and a bit more, and the AI still manages to clout you. Usually what happens is that you come off damaged with a bad front wing, and that's your race pretty much changed for the worse from there on out. Now, damage does happen in racing, and that's something that you sometimes can't control. But it gets very frustrating, especially, and I mean especially, when lapping slower cars. Now, the blue flag rule in real F1 is quite aggressive. I think you can get 3 blue flags, then you've got to get out of the way and got to make sure you're helping facilitate that pass for the faster car. It's actually, I think, one of the only series in the world that has that. Blue flags usually are just kind of there's a guy behind you, keep an eye out for him. But the AI in F1 2018, anyway, just were really poor at being lapped. And there were many, many times where I lose a front wing where a lapped car would just brake on the racing line unexpectedly, and unless you have superhuman reactions or you can see into the future, you have no chance. You run into the back of them, lose a bit of wing, and that's pretty much again your race over because AI is being janky. And even when you do manage to get alongside them, they'll just race you into the corner. They'll race you there and then usually just stop on your apex and then let you through. Of course, damage is done by that point. But when you're fighting someone for the lead in the career mode race, you're trying to chase someone down and a tenth a lap is everything, and you've just suddenly lost half a second because of this AI being janky, it's incredibly frustrating, especially considering that the AI seems to be able to navigate each other just perfectly. It's a conspiracy, I tells you! And just on that subject of AI, I'd also like to see the AI be a bit more consistent between different tracks. Now, I am far from being the best F1 2018 driver in the world, but there are some tracks that even I can get away with cranking up the difficulty to 110% and still having a chance against the AI. And meanwhile, there are circuits like Bahrain and Baku where you really have to turn the difficulty down if you want to have that consistent experience. And again, it's just a kind of a little thing in the grand scheme of things, but to be competitive at one track and then suddenly be a second a lap off your teammate at the next circuit on the same difficulty level, I don't know, it's just a bit confusing at times. I think it's something that should be addressed. The next point I'd like to make is about the career mode, which I did kind of flippantly mention at the start of the video. We are seeing hopefully some improvements of that. We have the F2 car announced, which hopefully is going to mean some sort of progression between the two formulas. Now, I understand at the end of the day, this is a game. No one wants to spend 4 seasons in a McLaren to not see it improve and just drive around the back, unless you're Fernando Alonso and love punishment. But even so, I feel like the progression in F1 2018 was too quick. In my career mode, I took the McLaren because I love an underdog, and of course McLaren is a British company, so some sort of odd patriotism there, I guess. And towards the end of the first season, I went from having the second slowest car on the grid to the fastest car on the grid, just by doing all my R&D things in practice. I even failed some of them, and having kind of average to good results. That was enough to take my car from being essentially a Force India, or a Racing Point, whatever the hell it's called now, to being a Mercedes in one season, which is just not realistic. I also had the opportunity mid-season to move from McLaren to Ferrari or Mercedes, just straight move mid-season, yet there you go, done deal, during my first season. If I were to suggest an improvement, it would be to kind of double that time frame. I don't want to be taking a slow car and being the fastest car by the end of the season, because the challenge is kind of then gone at that point of picking a slower team. But also, in the interest of keeping it fun and keeping it kind of like a game, I think going beyond making it a slog to get into a faster team wouldn't be as fun, so maybe just a slight increase in the time frame there. The fourth point for me was probably the deal breaker for F1 2018, and I want to just start this point off by saying that I know that streaming and using OBS, Open Broadcaster software, is a big draw on the PC and could have maybe contributed to some of these problems, or made them a little bit worse. However, I have also experienced these problems in offline testing away from streaming, so I think it's fair to say they are fairly consistent. And that point for me is just game stability. Now again, this doesn't apply to every system, but I've seen enough Steam posts and enough forum posts to know that this isn't just my problem. On the PC version of the F1 2018 game, I think the console version is actually fairly free of these, the game suffers from stutters. Now I don't have a weak system. I have an i7 8700K processor as well as a 1080 Ti graphics card, and yeah, I'm getting stutters pretty much every lap in ways that make the game almost unplayable. I'll be turning into a corner, the game will stutter, I'll then miss my apex, lose half a second, and the guy behind me will have an opportunity to overtake into the next DRS zone. Now I'm not sure how you go around fixing this. I'm not a developer, I am not a programmer, anything like that. I'm just a pleb that plays racing games from a shed at the bottom of his mum's garden. But racing titles need to be smooth. Every input in a racing game, especially if you're using a wheel and pedals, every input is important. So to essentially get to a corner, have the game say, nope, you aren't going to get to do what you want to do this lap, and have you lose time consistently. It's not just once, once every now and then. I was getting to the point where I was having a stutter in the same place on the track, maybe once every couple of laps, and yes, I tried turning down settings, I've tried pretty much everything that's been suggested on forums and Steam and the like. To have that happen, it just completely takes you out of the experience of the game, and it made me not want to play, so much so that I don't play that game anymore, because I don't like doing a 100% distance race just to have it ruined by a stutter halfway through that I have no control over. But for now, that's all the things that I can think of that I would like to see improved in F1 2019. And whilst the video I think may have come across as being a little bit negative in some places, I would like to just add on that I very much enjoyed F1 2018 when it all worked as intended. As always, I'd be very much interested to hear from you guys. What do you think needs improving for F1 2019? Let me know in the comments and maybe we can open up a discussion there. If you did enjoy the video or found it informative in any way, then please help me out, hit the like button. If you really enjoyed it, hit subscribe and the bell notification icon. That way you'll be made notified of future streams and of course future content. But a massive thank you to my Patreons and to my sponsors. Take care, have an awesome day, and I'll see you all next time.